infectious disease management. Oh, I'm sorry, this is cut off at the top. Okay. Anybody familiar with the concept or the term of chain of infection? 1, 2, okay. So you've already just answered a question, but what about chain of infection? What can you tell me about that?
It's like it needs a chain, so it would not require only one system or one host. It is usually involved like in human, in animals, and the chain are usually long or short. And if we want to stop the transmissions, we could choose one of the portal, which one is the most effective way.
All right, so it's the idea that there are these steps that have to happen, right, in order for an infectious agent to be transmitted. And it's continuous, right? These steps are linked. That's why it's called a chain, all right? And we talk about it that way in infectious disease management because we can break that chain at many different places. So it's an effective sort of graphic or a way to think about how things are connected. It's not just one step, okay? So you have to have an infectious agent. And we all know what types of infectious agents there are, yes? Name some types of infectious agents. They're written up there if you can read it. Okay, bacterias, viruses, protozoa, fungi, parasites. Okay, that's pretty good. Some people put prions in those lists, some don't, okay? We can consider those as well. Infectious proteins, very strange. They might come from outer space, I'm not sure. That's possible. Okay, so reservoir or host, right? So a reservoir is where the agent lives or replicates. Okay, what are some reservoirs for all of those different agents, potential pathogens that we just listed? Water, okay. Soil, air. There we go, humans, and I heard somebody say, so I always like to say humans and other animals. Yeah, that's my veterinary perspective, that we're all related. It's a continuum. I study comparative medicine, so I always say humans and other animals, just to get people used to thinking about the fact that we're another kind of animal. So water, soil, yeah, humans, other animals, plants, right? So these are all places. So reservoir, you'll hear the terms reservoir and reservoir host, sometimes used interchangeably. It's a little bit about vocabulary and semantics, but it's important. So a reservoir doesn't have to be another living organism, okay? A reservoir host is another living organism in which an agent lives, bacteria, virus, etc., okay? What are the different modes of transmission? How can agents be transmitted? Oh, I skipped portal of exit. So the portal of exit is however the pathogen or the potential agent leaves its reservoir and gets into a potential host. Okay, so we just said air, soil, water, humans and other animals, plants as well. Okay, so what are some of the portals of exit? The
portal of exit, like through the feces.
So through the feces. So think of ways that say if a human or another animal is infected with an agent, how is that agent going to get out of my body or the body of an animal to potentially be in contact with another reservoir host and be shared? Feces, blood, saliva, okay, urine, milk. I was going to say we're mammals, so we make, yeah, milk, yeah, okay. Droplets. What is a really easy way to transmit droplets? Right, okay. So modes of transmission. So thinking about all of those different portals of exit, and that's not a complete list, but it's a really good start. Modes of transmission. Okay, I heard direct, the opposite of direct, indirect, excellent. What does indirect mean? In the context of infectious disease. So what's direct? Right? Direct. Okay, what's indirect?
It's like a direct contact to another organism or
Okay.
another host.
Yeah, so direct, shake And
Yeah.
indirect is I have some of your coffee out of the cup you just drank from, right? So that can be an indirect way. So I want to make a point too that here with the terminology of direct and indirect, the terminology can be, it's not clear. There are differences of opinion. So you can find diagrams and explanations of direct and indirect contact, including words like vector. We know a vector is a living organism that transmits something, or a fomite, an inanimate object that might transmit. So that's if I have a drink from your coffee or teacup that you've drank from, and maybe I share something with you. Okay? It is not globally agreed upon. Okay? Some people consider fomites to be direct contact. So others consider airborne to be direct contact. So it's confusing. It can be very confusing. But in general, just know that there are those different broad categories. Okay? Direct and indirect, vector-borne, blood-borne, okay? Some people also list iatrogenic. What does that mean? Hmm? Heard something over here. Iatrogenic, okay, I heard.
Because of the human's activities.
Okay, where was that? You again? Yeah, it's good. I like that you're confident in sharing. That's great. So because of human activities, right, we often talk about iatrogenic infections in a healthcare setting, okay? Methicillin-resistant Staph aureus, right? Something that is transmitted in a healthcare setting, either because of poor hygiene, inadequate, barrier methods or protection, hospital-acquired infections. The same can happen with animals as well, okay? Portal of entry. So we have all those different modes of transmission: portal of exit, mode of transmission, portal of entry. What are some portals of entry? They're kind of similar to the portals of exit, right? More or less. Eating, yes. Inhalation. Eating and drinking, inhalation. Open wounds, right? So broken skin. One of your main barriers to infection is your intact skin. Okay, what else? Copulation, yes. So sexual contact, okay? That's a big route of transmission for humans and animals. Yes, animals have sexually transmitted diseases. A lot of people don't know that, but it's true. Brucellosis, yes, that's an example of a sexually transmitted disease in animals. Transmissible venereal tumors in dogs. Many others. I don't want to digress too much. Okay, so those are also, what else? So there's other portals of entry, right? So conjunctiva of your eyes, mucous membranes of the mouth or the nose. Yep. Okay, and susceptible host. What does that mean? What are all of the things that have to happen once a pathogen or a potential pathogen contacts a potential host? What has to happen? So it has to have a portal of entry. Every time a pathogen or potential pathogen contacts a new host, does that host become infected? No, okay. Okay, immune response. Well, what else can happen? We just talked about some potential portals of entry. So what if I got something from an aerosol?
Binding to the receptors.
Binding to receptors. Where's the voice, the disembodied voice? Here. There we go, binding to receptors. Okay, even before that, even before you get to binding to receptors, which is important, what can happen? Say somebody sneezes in my eye. I got some aerosol droplets, some aerosols or some droplets in my eye, in contact with my conjunctiva. What happens? That's a barrier. Okay, but what else? What might my eye do if I get a sneeze in it? Blink. Okay, what else happens? Tears, okay? So think about these things. So these are some of your natural defense mechanisms, and animals' natural defense mechanisms as well. So in addition to the intact skin, the intact surface, you've got blinking, you have tears, right? You have mucus in your respiratory tract and cilia, right, that move debris and mucus out of your respiratory tract. That's all part of the defense and part of what determines, are your defenses in your respiratory tract compromised? Do you have another viral infection? Do you have cystic fibrosis? Okay, something that might compromise those defenses. So all of those things are important and determine whether or not a contact between a potential pathogen, an infectious agent, and a host actually leads to infection. Okay, and then we get to things like binding to receptors, primary immune response, cell-mediated immune response, all of those things, okay? And everything from age, nutritional status, okay, genetic predispositions, those all are the qualities of the host that determine whether or not, when contacted by a potential pathogen, you get infected or not. Even if you're infected, are you going to get sick every time? No. I like this. You guys know all this stuff. I'm just going to move on. We're going to just, yeah. So you can be infected with an agent, with a potential pathogen, and not become sick. Okay? So I think some of these slides we've already covered the content. Infectious agents are microorganisms with the ability to cause disease. But do they always cause disease? No. Okay? Keep that in mind. An infectious agent is not necessarily the same as a pathogen. A pathogen is an agent that has caused disease. Reservoir host. We already covered that distinction between a reservoir does not have to be another living organism. A reservoir host is another living organism, okay? And that definition is the environment or object or organism in or on which a microorganism replicates, okay? And I always like to remind people that sometimes we think of ourselves, again, humans and other animals. Sometimes we think of ourselves as special or separate or apart from the rest of the animal kingdom. We do have unique qualities, that's for sure. Some of them are good and some of them are bad, right? But we are not in any sense above any other animals when it comes to infectious diseases, okay? So we're not up here somehow separate, all right? We are right here in the middle of the mix with nature. So here's this lovely naked man to demonstrate portals of exit, right? And I just wanted to reinforce that the portals of exit for humans, are they really any different from those of a chicken, right? Or a cat, or this lovely Sulawesi macaque who took his own picture a couple years ago and became a media star. Did you guys see that photo? Did that make the rounds here? Huh? A what? It is a natural picture. The Sulawesi macaque, he actually stole somebody's photographer's camera and took his own picture. So, yeah, it's quite a selfie. So anyway, the portals of exit are really not different. So all of the portals of exit we talked about for humans apply to other animals, right? With certain, small details, right? So the portal of exit for sort of the reproductive tract for a chicken, portal of exit is a little bit different. It's called a cloaca, right? And they lay eggs. They don't have babies, placentas. So details are slightly different, but in general, all of those different portals of exit are going to be the same, regardless of what species of animal we're talking about. They all exist. Okay, modes of transmission. We talked about those already. Portals of entry, much the same. And again, the same shared between humans, dogs, this lovely babirusa, fish. How many of you think about fish when you think about infectious diseases and fish medicine and health, right? It's a really big aquaculture industry in Indonesia. Lots of things related to that, okay? So we all share similar portals of entry. And we've talked about determinants or qualities of the potential host that determine whether or not contact with the pathogen leads to infection. So the sort of sum total of the immune experience of this baby is pretty similar to that of these newly hatched chickens. Okay, they're fairly immunologically naive. They might have some passive transfer of antibodies from their mother. Okay, so they may have some residual immunity, but they haven't yet been exposed to a lot of pathogens in the environment, and probably, although in some cases they may have been vaccinated. So do you know what vaccines children get right after birth? It varies by country and by the risks, but quite often they receive a hepatitis vaccine within a couple of days of birth, and neonatal chickens as well will often receive some vaccines at just 1-2 days of age. So they may have been vaccinated, but maybe not yet built that immune response. So their immune system is going to be very different from that of this elderly man who's hospitalized for something else, okay? Same thing with animals in hospital. or animals that are already sick for other reasons, okay? They're going to be compromised. Their response to a potential contact with a new pathogen is going to be different because they're already spending a lot of energy and a lot of their resources on maybe healing a broken leg or fighting off another infection, recovering from surgery. They've had a lot more vaccines. They've seen a lot more of the sort of pathogenic world, maybe had a chance to build more immune responses, but they actually may be more susceptible to infection with the pathogen because they're immunocompromised, maybe than even some younger animals who are maybe stronger.